Hey, welcome back to another episode of Culture Cast. Dustin, this is my favorite show because you have one of the best shows in showing all sorts of cultures throughout the world.
Well, thank you, Patrick. And again, I just continue to thank you and Dwayne for having me, even though I've moved across state lines and now work for a rival Big Ten university. And you know, one positive outcome of the current pandemic that we're living through is that we're able to use Zoom to connect with each other across state and today across international borders, which I am really excited about. So CultureCast viewers, thank you for tuning in. If you're a returning viewer, we appreciate your patronage. If you're a new viewer, welcome in. Today is a great day to jump in to our series. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce my very esteemed guest, Eber. Eber and I were recently connected to each other because Eber has a passion for agriculture and farming. And I've done some work with agriculture and farming and youth in different countries. And I'm just very thankful that our two passions were connected and that we get to work together. So I've asked Eber to come on to CultureCast to tell us a little bit about the Commonwealth of Dominica. So Eber, the first question I ever asked you, I think when we met via Zoom was, so you live in the Dominican Republic?
Yes. Usually when I tell people that I'm from Dominica, it's like magic, you know. First place they think of is the Dominican Republic, but there's actually another place within the Caribbean that is also called Dominica, but it's the Commonwealth of Dominica. And it's an English-speaking island with a French patois, local patois that we have. And yeah, it's a beautiful place.
Yeah, and Eber's really rubbing it in today because he's sitting outside and you can see the beautiful sun. And he's out in his nursery. And if we have time, we're going to ask Eber to give us a little tour so we can get a view of you know, what agriculture and gardening is like. So to our CultureCast viewers, as Eber was saying, I've got a map on the screen. And that little red dot that you see there in the Caribbean is the island of Dominica that Eber was just explaining is not the same thing as the Dominican Republic. And as we always do, Eber, I'm going to share just some quick fun facts about the island that I researched, although you should probably be doing this because you live there. But the size of the island is about 4 times the size of Washington, D.C. So to help put it in perspective, for our U.S. viewers, it was the last island formed by a volcano in the Caribbean. And I also read that it's referred to as the nature island of the Caribbean. You're going to see some photos that help to back up that statement. The population, there's about 74,000 people there, which for our Ohio viewers would be about the size of the city of Canton. So we always start with a map and a flag, and here is the beautiful flag of the Commonwealth of Dominica. So Eber, we're going to jump into some of the beautiful photos that you provided to us. If you'd be willing to hop back on video for a moment and to tell our viewers a little bit about you. So tell us your passion and what you currently do, and tell us about your family. You're also on mute, Eber.
Yeah, so I jumped off video because it actually started raining.
Oh.
Yeah, so I had to try and find a different location. I was underneath the netted areas. So,
tropical problems, huh?
Correct.
Yeah.
But beautiful weather nonetheless. So right now, as you rightly said, I'm at my nursery where we do different types of plants. We do vegetable seedlings, that type of thing. And as well, we do forest type trees, hardwood trees, and agroforestries, that type of those type of seedlings. So to answer your question or to talk to the guests, I'm from Dominica, the Commonwealth of Dominica, and I'm a social entrepreneur, an entrepreneur, and just a do-gooder in general. It started off for me with my dad falling ill, being the sole breadwinner, of the family, and then I just had to decide on I needed to do something to help, you know? And then that's where my entrepreneurial journey started. And I am the last of 6 kids. So I'm the baby of the family. And, you know, sometimes it's a bit, you get spoiled a bit. So, but when dad fell ill, my spoiling got cut short and I had to grow up really fast. So that being said, I was always a bit advanced for my age than my peers. And it led me into a whole different walk of life. And on that journey, I've had a lot of beautiful experiences. So for instance, I've met the Queen of England to receive an award for my work that I do, this same type of work with other young people. I've been inducted into the Young Leaders of the Americas initiative. It was an initiative by President Obama and, well, the U.S. State Department. So that was in 2017. Those both were in 2017, and last year, 2019, also part of the One Young World family of young persons doing great things around the world. So that's kind of like a background on me, and most of my work is with youth. Generally, all of my work up until my most recent project, which Dustin knows a lot of, which is with women right now. But prior to that, everything I did was with youth, for youth, by youth. And that's kind of like a background. If you know anyone dedicating their life to youth work, well, that's me. But I did it through agriculture and agro-processing. So not just the growing of crops, but I'm also into the processing of that agricultural produce and the subsequent marketing. So yeah, that's kind of a nutshell about who Eber Ravariere is.
Thanks, Eber. And you mentioned to us earlier that you have a special partner at home who owns a restaurant. Can you tell us about her?
Okay, so that's my beautiful wife, Valerie Ravariere. Well, she was previously Honorary, so Valerie Honorary Ravariere. And she's been a rock in my life. A lot of the things that I've achieved, I could not have achieved without her. And I thank God for us coming into contact the time we did and the way we did. And I mean, just full disclosure, we're going through sort of a sad time because she just lost her dad. And the funeral was on Saturday, but it's sad, but there's a lot to be joyful for, a lot of experiences, a lot of, you know, memories and all of that. So she's my rock.
Yeah. So we've asked Eber to shut his video off just due to some connectivity issues, but don't fear, viewers, he's still there. He's going to help narrate some beautiful photos that we have from the Commonwealth of Dominica. So Eber, let's start with some geographical parts of the island. So tell us about what we see here.
Okay, so this photo is a photo of the boiling lake. So I think, if memory serves me right, it's the largest it's in the top 3 largest boiling lakes around the world. Wow. To give an idea of how hot it is, if you were to drop an egg for less than a second into that and pull it up, it would be completely cooked. So that's the level of heat that it emits. And to get there, it's a journey. It's like you leave 4 in the morning and you come back you leave like 7 in the morning and you come back like 4 in the afternoon, if you're a normal hiker. So it's a whole day's hike back and forth. But when you get there and the journey to getting there, it's awesome. I recommend anyone who loves hiking, come down here, hike to the boiling lake, hike the national Waitikubuli Trail. And Waitikubuli is the Kalinago name, the indigenous name for the island, you know, so it's beautiful.
So what causes the heat that makes it boil?
So the boiling lake is actually in the crater of a dormant volcano. So our island is a volcanic island. There are several dormant volcanoes, and it just so happened that water happened to be collecting in this one, and it gave us the boiling lake. Some of the magic features.
And you were talking about hiking. This was another photo that you shared with us. I mean, it's just gorgeous.
Yeah.
Are there protected areas on the island?
Yes, there are protected areas. Many protected areas. We have a few parks. Most of our mountains and the range around them are national parks. And this one, I think, this photo shows how do you call it? The Freshwater Lake, I believe. And the Freshwater Lake is our largest body of freshwater, dormant freshwater. It's also in the heights, the crater type, situated in a crater type area of a dormant volcano as well, but it's freshwater. And people go out on the lake, take boat tours, do that type of thing. When you're up there, it's always foggy, it's always so pristine, it's always so magical, you know. That actually is my favorite place on the island, Freshwater Lake. So anytime you guys come onto Dominica, that's the first place I'll bring you on, to the Freshwater Lake.
It's just looking at this photo brings a sense of peace to me.
Yeah.
You know, so I appreciate you sharing this with us.
And that's exactly why it's my favorite place. It's always so peaceful up there, you know, and cool. Yeah. The air smell.
Yeah, we can't show an island without showing, I mean, what I think is the best part of being on an island, right? So
yeah,
tell us about this.
Okay, so this photo is a photo of the west coast of the island. And it shows like multiple locations. So there are many villages as you drive along the west coast, and a lot of our villages and communities are located on the coastal parts of the island because of, you know, the history and how things happen. So this is the west coast, a photo of the west coast, a portion of the west coast, I should say, and from a distance out at sea. And that's basically what the island looks like when you're passing on a boat, or you're on a helicopter or plane passing out on the west coast of the island. So I just thought it would be awesome to give that type of perspective of what the island looks like from out at sea.
And I wish I would have done a little bit more investigating of the islands before we did our gardening lessons together. To our viewers, we did some virtual gardening lessons with some women in Dominica, and I remember them specifically asking about how do we farm on hills. And I remember thinking that was kind of an odd question because I just assumed the island was flat, but this photo goes to show now I understand why they were asking for tips to garden or farm on hillsides.
Yes, so now you understand why when they were asking, hey, how do we plant on a hillside? You may be just thinking a gentle slope.
Yes.
They literally meant hillsides.
Yeah, and for living here in the Midwest, like, I mean, these are legitimate mountains, you know. Like you said, when they said hills, I was thinking kind of rolling slopes, but those are mountains. So anyway, thank you for sharing those landscape photos. I'm a big history nerd, so I was really excited when you were telling me about this. Share this story with our viewers.
Okay, so these are it's a plant, it's a fern that they use and they carve to make different types of images and portraits, and it is done by several cultures all over the world, but those specific ones were done by the Kalinago people. They are an indigenous people to the island, and the Kalinago people were once called the Caribs, but they have since changed that name to the Kalinago people, which is their actual ancestral name. The name Carib was given to them by those who came from Europe and all of that. So they went back to calling themselves the original name of their people, the Kalinago people. And there is a model village that was created of what, you know, an ancient Kalinago village looked like. So this photo was taken at that village at a particular point overlooking the ocean. At that model village, basically. So that I just thought that it would be awesome to show people some of the art of the ancient Kalinago people at that model village. And it's one of the sites that you can literally go to when you come on the island. And it's called the Cabana Ote, I believe, in the Kalinago language, which has been lost. Yeah.
You mentioned the indigenous people.
Correct.
So do you know, I mean, where, for the people living on the island, where could they trace back their heritage and history? Where did other people come from?
Okay, so with the Caribbean and a lot of other places, the Kalinago people, and other indigenous people like the Amerindians, the Arawak, the Taino, they came from South America, and they basically used to travel the island from South America up the island chains up into the Americas and back down. You know, that type of circle, and they were nomads in their own way. They would spend a few years on a particular island and then move to the next one. They had certain major settlements in places like some of the bigger islands up in the north of the Caribbean, and some of the smaller islands like Dominica. They were more like pit stops along the way. Although, and pit stop doesn't mean 1 month; it means they spent a few years there, you know, and yeah, so at the point when the Europeans came, and they met some Kalinagos on the island, and yeah, so they ended up staying because they came as slave traders and, you know, try to cultivate the island, took control of the island, and well, we know how those stories went. And for other persons on the island, it's persons of African descent. They were brought as over to the island as a result of slavery as well. So that's kind of like the history behind it. Yeah, and then
I appreciate you sharing that, Eber, because I think that's important. It's important for us to understand that. I think often we see these Caribbean islands and we think about how beautiful and gorgeous they were, but there's also a part of their history that, you know, was not so beautiful, as you were talking, as part of the slave trade. So I'm glad you brought that up, and that's important for our viewers to see. And speaking of people and culture, I'm going to fast forward here a couple photos to this photo. Tell our viewers about the celebration that's going on in this photo.
Okay, and it's fitting actually. So this is an independence celebration. So it's the 3rd of November. So when we received our independence from England, which at the time was the country who was in charge or owned the Dominica, when we received our independence, the people came out and partied and were so happy and jumped and danced and all of that. And back in the day, some of walking on stilts was cultural. So, and that is one of those celebrations. One of the years independence is celebrated in Dominica. So it's just a short snippet of the tons and tons of activities that happened during that time. But I just thought that one would be fun to show, you know?
Yeah, I'm glad you did. When I was in Ghana, I had the opportunity to be there during their national independence celebration, and it blew anything I had ever experienced in the U.S. out of the water for Independence Day. So I'm glad you shared this. So Eber, we've got about 6 or 7 minutes left, and I want to make sure we get into the best part of this presentation, and that is the food. So we're going to flip through some of these and tell us about what's in the photo, and then I also want to know which of these is amongst your favorite dishes. So tell us what we're seeing here.
Okay, so we are actually looking at my favorite dish, or one of my favorite. So in this exact same dish, but instead of in the photo there is herring, smoked herring. Imagine saltfish or codfish, or how we call it, salted codfish. That's one of the big things on the island. It's cultural. It's been with us for as long as anyone on the island knows. So it's bananas, saltfish, or herring, and that's avocados on the plate. And it does not only do it with bananas. You do different types of provisions, you know, so ground provisions, that type of thing.
And there are plantains, you said, right, on the left-hand side?
On the left, those are bananas.
Bananas, okay.
Yeah, correct, yeah. But
so they're sweet.
No, those are more not sweet, like starchy tasting, yeah. Yeah.
Do you harvest them when they're still really green, the bananas?
You could harvest them while they're green, once they're matured, while they're green, or when they're ripe. But most people they're matured, and then you ripe them in a ripening room or somewhere. Yes.
And Eber shared with us earlier that these photos are from his wife's restaurant. So I don't know about y'all, but my mouth's salivating. Just, it's a beautiful plate. It's plated very well, and the food is delicious too. Looks delicious too.
Yes.
Eber, we look like we're at a barbecue. What do we see here?
Well, actually, at the restaurant, well, my wife and her mom owns the restaurant. It's called Caribbean Flavor Cuisine. So any one of our viewers who come to Dominica, look out for Caribbean Flavor Cuisine. And right now we're looking at baked pork, pork ribs, baked pork ribs. And we serve our food like buffet style. So it's not buffet, but it's on display. You choose what you want, and then we plate it for you, and you get to sit and eat what you like. Yes.
Is pork a popular meat on the island?
Meat is a popular meat on the island. All kinds of. Yeah, so pork, chicken, but we know chicken is international. Pork, chicken. We do a lot of goat down here as well. We love, I should say, down here as well, and beef. Those types of meat.
All right, tell us about this photo.
Yeah, so these are just some of the provision, the different types of provision. So the yellow ones are the plantains, the white ones are the breadfruit, we know as breadfruit, and then those in the back are bananas again. Sometimes in a dish like that, a pan like that, you would have dashings as well, tanyas, yams, and all different type of more exotic type ones like couscous or silk yam and type of, yeah.
So that earlier photo with the salted fish had just plain bananas. Are there other ways that you prepare it? Yeah. Like, would you deep fry some of this?
Well, for the specific, down here we actually call it vegan saltfish or saltfish and provision, or we call it in our local dialect vegan codfish, but it's called fish. But vegan codfish, yeah. So, but it's provision and codfish or provision and saltfish. So it doesn't necessarily, but it's cooked, never fried. I mean, you can do it just to spice things up, but traditionally it's boiled provision and saltfish.
Okay. This looks like a sweet treat. Am I right?
It can be done sweet, but those are salty. So those we call bakes locally, but more internationally they're known as maybe Johnny cakes or something like that. You split them and saltfish or cheese paste or tuna paste or all different kinds of whatever you want to stuff it with, basically. So you could eat it just like that, or you could stuff it with the tuna or the saltfish or codfish. Well, saltfish and codfish are the same, but different types of stuffings. Some people get real creative with it and stuff it up, and you buy it $2 for one. When it's stuffed, $3 for one, and you have a bite, and it's awesome. Yeah.
Tell us about this dish.
This is another breakfast bowl at the restaurant. So it's Johnny cakes, plain Johnny cakes, not stuffed, with some sausages, veggies, and in that plate on the side, we could see some eggs way in the corner, scrambled eggs. It's like a breakfast bowl. And that's what breakfast generally looks like down here.
So if you eat this whole thing in the morning, do you still take lunch?
Definitely. Yes, definitely. That's not even enough for some people. What I wish I had in there as well was some cocoa tea, like cocoa tea, but like local cocoa, and you eat it with this, basically. Yeah.
In the morning, hot. Do you drink it hot? Okay.
Hot, yeah.
What about coffee? Do people drink coffee there?
Yes, we do have culture down here, and it's not as big as South America, but we do have a coffee culture down here. Okay. Yeah. So
Eber, we're getting short on our time, but let's do one more dish. I think, did you say this was a breakfast dish as well?
Yes, it was, yeah.
Okay, so tell us about this, and then we'll wrap up our conversation.
Okay, so this one has the veggies, the saltfish, the veggies sort of cover the saltfish, and then we have some banana peze. So it's a French way of saying pressed banana plantains. So that's the yellow pressed and deep fried. And then we have some dash-ins on the side here. So yeah, that's another breakfast plate.
I
Yeah.
feel really guilty. I had a pancake for breakfast this morning. And like, look at this. It's incredible, Eber. And if it tastes just half as good as it looks,
It does.
I don't know how you stay so thin, because it looks delicious. So Eber, I always end our Culture Cast shows by asking my guests, why should people visit Dominica? Tell us.
Okay, so if you're looking at the photo on screen right now, you're looking at exactly why persons should visit Dominica. It's beautiful. It's a wellspring of nature. It's calming. It's soothing. And when you hike up to those heights, even the air smells differently, tastes differently. And I'm telling you, everywhere I go, I'm like a self-proclaimed ambassador. And I say to everyone, in your lifetime, at least once, you need to come and visit the island. And I can guarantee you, if you're a nature lover or someone who's just looking to pause from the hustle and bustle of life, Dominica is that perfect place for you. And you can come once and you will come again. I can guarantee you that. So it's an awesome place. I love my country to death. I know we all love.
Yeah, that's very evident, Eber. And you've sold me. It's on my list. I mean, it's just been incredible to get to know you, but now to hear you tell us about your beautiful country and to see these photos, I can't wait to visit someday. So, Eber, I want to thank you for joining us on this interview. I think you experienced 2 different seasons while we were going through this interview of sun and then rain.
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
But thank you for powering through this with us. And I want to also thank Patrick and Dwayne. Thank you for your behind the scenes technical mastery and ability to help us put on Culture Cast, and to all of our viewers. Thank you for tuning in. And I hope that you will join us next time as we explore another part of this big, beautiful world that we live in. Take care.